What's going on, everyone? I'm Mark and Monarch here. I hope you guys are doing blessed, man. You already know how I'm doing. So what I got for you guys today is an outlook over what we've seen through this past week, what we've seen cooking up, and what we could really start seeing being developed within these markets. As we're starting to move forward into the month of March, what I've noticed is that the commodities markets are now on the verge of seeing an even stronger pullback. And what I found interesting about this was because originally I was talking about how there could potentially be a pump in March in the markets, especially when it comes to Bitcoin and a bunch of the altcoins underneath it. But then I started to read more into this book and I started looking into it deeper, and I'm like, maybe April is the real setup, and they used the month of March to really accumulate some cash. So I think the month of February was almost like an events month where they were just kind of putting stuff out there, so that way we really start getting some activity in the markets in a way where the big players don't have to really put money into the markets in order for it to be fluctuating. They can just allow retail to do it.
By the time it moves, what do you need on the other side? You need liquidity to get out of the position, and that's when the public come in, because now it's been filtered all the way to the public.
The month of March, I suspect that this month could really be a month for small caps. And although we have been seeing small caps making some serious movement this year, we haven't really seen like the small cap breakout yet. And I think that the month of March could really be that month, which now transitions us into April, which puts us into the month where I think crypto could really see a strong move. So whether you guys are looking to get into the short term, the long term, or you're just looking to see how the markets could be moving within the next couple of weeks to months, as well as these patterns that we're seeing, you guys are in the right place at the exact right time. So without further ado, you already know how we do. Let's get into it. Okay, so my screen might look a little different in this one just because I don't have my primary monitor with me right now. So it will look a little different, but just bear with me now. I'm really just trying to show you guys what's happening right here, right now, because whenever it comes to news and everything, I'm not saying not to follow it, but it is important to understand that the news, everything we hear, everything's already been set into plan. This play's already going into play. It's already in motion. They really just put these news out in these narratives in order for people to follow them and kind of get on with the crowd and believe what they want us to believe.
You do not get your trading ideas from mainstream media, newspapers, TV, online, because their objectives are totally the opposite of yours. The objective of a newspaper is to sell newspapers. The objective of a TV station is to get ratings. The objective of a website is to generate hits on that website. So what are they going to do? They're going to report sensationalist headlines to make stupid people do stupid things.
What I'm noticing right now is there is a transition at play. All of these markets that would be seen as risk off markets are now on the verge of pulling back. They're not there yet. But as you'll see, between gold, oil, silver, what's happening right now is it looks like they're kind of making this last stretch, I guess you could call it. And I suspect, especially because this last stretch that we're seeing is happening right before the month of March, March could really be a hot month for these small caps as well as meme coins. We'll call this almost like a rotation ladder in a sense. Although we are seeing gold, silver as well, they are seeing a bit of a pump in the market. It really just looks like that this pump is just a pump that's going to lead us into an even stronger pullback. Now, it's not to say that these markets can't keep running up. They very well could. What this signals to me is that this is the transition we are now seeing from these risk-off assets into the risk-on assets. Keep in mind, I was just talking about last week as well, how Interactive Brokers was posting all over their media and everything that it is now small cap season. And there's a saying that I always really like. It's buy the rumors, sell the news. And what this kind of signals to me when I hear that kind of playing in the back of my head as I'm looking at this is when IBKR said that it is small cap season, they didn't mean that the month of February was small cap season, because you'll notice if we look at some small caps I've been scouting for the last little bit, you know, you got markets like SAFX, you got markets like MSAI, you got markets like JTAI, XT Medical Holdings, Game Square, SRXH Solutions. And these aren't just random small cap assets either. I've talked about them before too. But what you're seeing is they all seen a bit of a pump, but that wasn't the breakout run that a lot of these small caps are very likely to see. What that was almost like the initiation phase. And what I mean by the initiation phase is it was a signal that there is something bigger to come. And that's exactly why we're now seeing the market consolidate, because that wasn't the real move. The real move is still yet to come. And that's why I was saying that it almost seems like the month of March is being set up for a season of small caps to flourish, as well as the season for meme coins to flourish. And this is what I'm talking about the market now moving from risk off assets into the risk on assets. Now, when I'm looking into these risk on assets, I think that the sectors that are really key to kind of zoom in on is healthcare. So you got like the biotech, the pharmaceuticals, you have finance, you have retail, and then you also have tech sector and the meme coins. Now, although the tech sector did pump, I still think there are some tech assets that you can get in on if you get into the right assets. It's important that we understand what we are getting into before we do make a play. But like I said, this is the month, I think, where you can really take advantage of these short to midterm plays. Now take a look at Bitcoin right now too. They recently just pulled back into the zone that I had marked off a little bit ago. Now, what this signals to me is that Bitcoin could potentially consolidate for the next little bit. This aggressive move down would likely shake out a lot of people. And by this happening, now the market might consolidate for a little bit. We might see some volatility here and there. But I don't think that the real move will happen until the month of April. And I think that the month of February and March were really just to start heating things up. You know, when you go to put on a pot on the stove, you know, you got some water in it and you're waiting for the water to boil. That's basically what was kind of happening in the markets. They were just heating it up, waiting for the water to get to a real boiling point where they can throw in the food. Now, the reason why I say that is because crypto's been kind of stagnant since the start of the year. And typically when you see this, that's a sign that there is a strong pump to come, but that doesn't mean that it'll happen when we expect it to happen. It usually happens when we don't expect it to happen. And this is kind of what we're seeing right now. What you'll notice right here on this chart is small caps. And after the small cap season, what do we move into? Bitcoin, Ethereum. So when we were here originally in the small caps and I was talking about them at the start of February, this was almost like the startup. It wasn't the breakout, but it was like the startup to kind of get things gearing up. And this was to tell us that there is a bigger move coming. Doesn't mean that it's for sure, but I can almost assure you that it is coming. Because isn't it weird how right after these assets pump, the market's now consolidating, opposed to just dropping right back down or going even higher? They're just consolidating, and they're all consolidating within a point of support. Oh, isn't that interesting? I want you guys to listen to this quickly. So this is a book that I'm reading called The Wealthy Barber. And this really tied my idea into this whole April where we could see a pump, because it is very likely that there's still another low to be seen in Bitcoin as well. That I will be getting into. But when I'm looking at this, the first thing that he says, okay, I love April. To poets and romantics, it symbolizes a new beginning, a kind of rebirth. I love April for 3 reasons: the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, and the essence of life itself. A new paradise Major League Baseball season. April paradise on earth. Thanks to my converter, I can still sit motionless, flicking back and forth between the NBA on TSN and the NHL on CBC, while listening to my beloved Tigers winning on one radio and the despised Blue Jays losing on another. When you throw in a second TV and a VCR, the possibilities are endless. April also ushers in the start of the golf season and marks the return of Ontario's fastest growing religion, slow pitch. So this book is a Canadian book, as I'm sure you could already tell. But this is the same thing for a lot of individuals, or the same feeling that a lot of individuals have across the world. Right? This isn't just one country that has the same feeling when it comes to April, because it's almost like it's the start of the summer, basically, and it's a really beautiful time of the year. This is when all the real big events that people really tune into are happening, as well as a month where there's a lot of money. Now, aside from that, April's a month when people really start coming outside. So, as the book stated, April is almost this month of rebirth. Now, what have you guys been seeing all over social media recently? The fire horse. And this is the the year of the fire horse, okay? The fire horse is meant to symbolize freedom and energy, as well as intensity and potential chaos. Now, when we look into the Benner cycle, which I went over a bunch of times already, but what the Benner cycle says is that 2026 is a year of good times and times to sell stocks and values of all kinds.
By the time this is in the paper, 6 months later, what do professional traders do on the day that it's in the paper? They use the liquidity of the morons to get out.
So not only does this fire horse symbolize that this year could be a year of potential chaos, which it already kind of has been, it also signals a new change. And what was the guy in The Wealthy Barber just talking about? How April is a month of rebirth. Now keep in mind, there is also a rate cut happening in June. Okay, well, there's a very high probability that there will be a rate cut in June. So what I anticipate the markets could kind of look like come that time is that's when the commodities could be at a low in their market. It's the timing of these markets, because you got to remember, these markets move in cycles and they move in trends. So if you can anticipate when the big markets are really moving, and I'm just using Bitcoin as an example because Bitcoin really is the most talked about asset right now. I think we could consolidate for the next couple of weeks, for the month of March, maybe see some little bit of volatility, nothing crazy. And then we see a pump up to these relative equal highs into the month of April. Now, what that would do is, with that pump into the month of April, this could start pulling the market back down, which would now give Bitcoin time, especially not just Bitcoin, right? We're not just looking at Bitcoin. This is across a lot of different markets as well. But Bitcoin really can kind of be used as this map amongst this space. It's just how you use it is the important part. So when I'm looking at Bitcoin, if we do see a pump in April, I suspect that it could be a strong pump, but I don't think it'll be the pump that everybody's really waiting for. And I do still think that this recession that we're seeing could be prolonged until about 2028, 2030.
The facts are, every single market cycle for the past 15 years has had 2 bottoms. Everyone.
And if you guys were watching my last video that I just posted, I was showing you guys how this really could lead into the month of 2030. So to me, what this looks like is if the commodities still have a bit of room to move, but they are on the verge of potentially seeing their pullback start in their market, which tells me that they are now moving from risk off assets and they're starting to move toward risk on. But this doesn't just happen overnight. You guys got to understand that there's a lot of money moving in this market. So it's a cycle or a transition from the risk off assets into the risk on. And whenever you go through a transition, tie it into your own life too, right? The transition doesn't just happen overnight, but there is one night where it just starts. And this looks like that's exactly what we're seeing. It looks like the start of the transition. And for all of my traders out there, this would mean that this is a very good time for you to start taking advantage of the volatility that's going to be within these markets. For all of my individuals that are just looking to invest and catch the longer moves, this is a very good time for you to start preparing yourselves in a position where you can now take advantage of the lows that will be presented in the markets that you want to get in on. You got to understand what type of player you are in this space. And I think what honestly a lot of what's happening right now is to confuse individuals in a way where they won't know what to do when the volatility hits the market. They won't know whether it is the time to buy or whether they should just keep selling. They'll be stuck in this state of confusion because of all the illusion that we've seen before. So now they won't know whether or not it is the time to buy or if they should just sit on the sidelines and wait for the markets to kind of keep doing its own thing.
I frankly think it's a tragedy in America that the small investor has been convinced by the media, the print media, the radio, the television media, that they don't have a chance, that the big institutions with all their computers and all their degrees and all their money have all the edges. And it just isn't true at all. And when they're convinced, when this happens, when this occurs, people act accordingly.
And if we are confused, then we jump to follow our thoughts instead of our senses. And this is no sense.
And it's not to say that you have to buy right away. But if you are looking to take advantage of these market opportunities, now's a solid time to start looking into where you can take advantage of into it, how you can take advantage of it. And they're taking a lot of these companies that were in the process of dying off and now making them something completely new. I think honestly, we could potentially, I'm not saying we will, but I think we could potentially even move down towards this $47,000 to $43,000 point before we do see a shift in this market. And then by seeing this is now what signals that the transition is in a way completed. And it's not to say that it's completed fully, but in the video, the guy was talking about how it's very likely that the lows that we could see are about 200 days apart. If that's the case, then from this low here, okay, from February, if we're now to move about 200 days apart, that wouldn't be until like 2027 we see the next low. If that's the case, then that would tell us that we very well could see another low and then the market kind of just sit in consolidation for a long period of time until 2028 to 2030. 2017 was the year where we seen a high in this market. And then what did we see after that? The market literally consolidated basically from 2017 until 2020. That is a 3-year consolidation phase of just like nothing happening in the market really. What did we see from 2017 to the next high? A 4-year period. and what happened at this period in time after we seen the high in 2021. Notice how that high was very close to December as well, right? This high was created in December. This high was created in November. Okay? But look at this. The markets just started pulling back for like another 2 years. So from 2017 until about 2019, we didn't really see the markets moving up. And then from 2021 till about 2023, we didn't really start seeing the markets move up. So what did we just see another 4 years later? We're seeing the market make a high in 2025 and then start moving back down. Isn't that interesting? We are seeing the same thing that we seen 4 years ago. We're seeing the same thing that we seen 4 years prior to that. And this is what I mean by history doesn't repeat itself. It's the human actions that repeat itself. And then as we start to move into 2028, that's when we start moving out of this so-called recession. The two assets that I'm keeping an eye on as we move forward is GPUS. I'm already in on this baby, but I do think they could potentially move a bit lower. I'm not certain, but I don't think it would be too much lower. Now, then again, never say never when it comes to these assets. So it is important that we are prepared. But if we do look into their chart, they really are just kind of sitting in consolidation right now. And they follow very closely to Bitcoin. So the moves that we see in Bitcoin, we'll very likely see a similar move in hyperscale data as well. And then OPTT. This is an asset that I talked about a bit ago. I do think that they could be seeing a very strong move in their market again. So I have an alert sitting at 29.15. If that is the case, if we do see them pull back down below this 29 cents point, and we do see them drop into this gap, I suspect that they could see another very strong push in their market, and it very well could be past that 72 cents point. So for anybody that is looking to get into a play, two solid plays and start positioning yourself early, these two plays right here are real solid. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry for the lighting and the setup. I'm not at my usual kind of headquarters space, so I don't have the same setup that I usually do. Anyways, stay blessed from the best. Peace and love.